Greetings, fellow lords and ladies. While I look at Game of Thrones Season 7 now continues on with Eastwatch. So, beginning of the Reach, in the aftermath of the battle. Sorry about that. Anyway, as I was saying, in the aftermath of the Battle of the Gold Road, Sir Bronn pulls Jaime Lannister from the depths of Blackwater Rush and onto the shore after Jaime's failed attempt to slay Daenerys Targaryen and end the war. Bronn tells Jaime the only reason he rescued him is that nobody gets to kill Jaime until Bronn gets the reward he's due from the Lannisters. Jaime, shell-shocked, remarks of the destructive power Drogon alone unleashed, and realizes they are in great peril if Daenerys deploys all three in future battles. Bronn assures that he won't be around for such an assault, and Jaime laments his duty to report what happened to Cersei. Bronn thinks it would be safer for him to jump back into the river than deal with Cersei's wrath. Meanwhile, on the Gold Road, Tyrion Lannister grimly assesses the carnage of the battle, seeing the ashes of wagons, horses, and Lannister soldiers. The prisoners of war are being herded by the Dothraki to Daenerys, with Drogon, apparently none the worse from taking a scorpion bolt to the shoulder, perched behind her menacingly and majestically. Daenerys appeals to them, bringing up the rumors spread about her by Queen Cersei, the warnings of brutality that the Dragon Queen would bring down homes and murdering families. She assures she is not here to murder, but to destroy the wheel of power that rules over the rich and poor alike, to no one's benefit but people like Cersei Lannister. She offers them a choice: bend the knee and join her in a quest to make the world a better place than ever before, or refuse and die. Tyrion looks at her apprehensively upon hearing this. Only a few kneel at first. Drogon, apparently insulted by their refusal to his mother's command, bows to them and most quickly yield. However, Rendell Tarly, his son Dickon, and a handful of men refuse. Daenerys summons Rendell forward, where he insists he already has a queen. Tyrion recalls he didn't pledge to Cersei until recently, and that she murdered the rightful queen, destroying House Tyrell for good. He observes Rendell's allegiances are flexible, to which Rendell answers there are no easy choices in war. He tells Tyrion that Cersei at least is true Westerosi, that Tyrion is a kinslayer, having killed his father, as well as supporting a foreigner, bringing savages to their continent. Daenerys accepts Randall's answer and prepares to carry out his sentence, but Tyrion intervenes with the possibility of sending Randall, a skilled warrior, to the wall instead of death. Randall replies Daenerys cannot send him to the wall as she is not his queen. Daenerys signals for 3 Dothraki men to apprehend him, but Dickon suddenly speaks up, insisting he will have to be killed too. Randall, horrified, tries to silence his son. Tyrion reminds Dickon that he is the future of House Tarly and insists that he submit, reminding him what happened to House Tyrell. Randall silently nods in agreement to Dickon, indicating his tacit approval to his heir to bend the knees so Dickon may be spared. Dickon refuses to relent on his decision. Tyrion proposes to Daenerys about having them committed to the cells for a time instead, but Daenerys, being ruthless but pragmatic, does not wish to grant the reputation of putting traitors in chains, or many would take advantage. She resumes her sentencing for them both, as they hold hands. Drogon unleashes Dragonfire, burning Randall and Dickon alive and reducing them both to flame and ash in seconds, killing them instantly. Terrified, the remaining soldiers instantly notice Tyrion reflects uneasily over the execution. At the Godswood of Winterfell, Bran Stark wargs into a flock of ravens to fly over the wall into the land of always winter. Through the ravens, he sees the army of the dead led by the White Walkers of the Night King, traveling south towards Eastwatch by the sea. His reconnaissance continues until the Night King sees the ravens, at which Bran severs connection. He tells Maester Wilkin that they need to send ravens at once. Later, in Winterfell's council chamber, Arya observes her sister presiding over a meeting of the Northern Lords. Saying that the King of the North should stay in the North, Lord Robert Glover and Lord Young Rice of the Vale of Arryn implied that they made a mistake in their choice of ruler, and that she take over power in the absence of her half-brother Jon Snow. However, Sansa says Jon Snow is their true ruler who is doing what he believes is right for the people, and that she is his regent. Following the meeting, Sansa confides her frustration to the Northern Lords with Arya, who calls out Sansa for diplomatically handling their concerns instead of shutting the Lords down. Arya thinks that she should not let the Lords get away with insulting Jon and hints at assassinating them. Sansa disagrees, which Arya calls attention to the fact that Sansa is using their parents' chambers and that she still thinks she's better than anyone else. Perhaps she even thinks that she will need the support of the Northern Lords if she wishes to seize the North for herself, even if she tries not to think of it. Disturbed at her younger sister's homicidal streak and hurt by the accusations, Sansa tells Arya that she has work to do. Much later, Arya strikes Littlefinger as he is walking through the grounds of Winterfell. Arya sees him speaking with a servant. She is too far to hear their conversation. Then follows him to his personal quarters and sees him chatting at the door with Maester Wogan. She eavesdrops on Peter, asking Wogan to be sure that this is the only copy. Assured that it is, Peter replies that Lady Stark thanks him for his services. Peter then briefly enters his room and leaves once again. Arya enters Peter's chambers and rummages through his study and furniture. Hidden under his mattress, she finds a scroll. This must be the scroll that Sansa wrote long ago to urge Robb, urging him to yield to Joffrey. Arya, unaware that Sansa had written the letter under duress from Cersei's attempt to save their father, looks horrified. She rolls up the scroll and sneaks out of the room, oblivious to a grinning Littlefinger watching from behind a wall. Anyway, in Old Town, at the Citadel, a conclave of ministers read Bran Stark's message warning of the army of the dead, but are dismissive of his account. Simultaneously, President Darley swaps out some books, vouches for Bran, and tells the ministers that Bran spent several years surviving in the wilds alone. One minister mockingly tells Samuel to practice with inscribing instead of entertaining myths and fables. Sam counters that they should use their position as ministers to warn the people to prepare for the coming night. Archmaester Ambrose opines that Bran's message could be genuine, but could be disinformation spread by Queen Daenerys. The ministers agreed to send a letter to Winterfell to investigate Bran's claims further, but as they disregard the White Walkers as legendary beings akin to the children of the forest and the drowned god, they clearly want to believe Ambrose's misinformation theory. While they agree to investigate Bran's message in further detail, they are skeptical of his claims. After Sam leaves, one of the other archmaesters asks if it's true that Sam's father and brother were recently burned alive. Ambrose confirms this, and admits that he hasn't had the heart to tell Sam yet. Later that night, Gilly reads High Septon Maynard's diary. Gilly tells Samuel the High Septon issued an annulment for Prince Rhaegar so that he can marry another woman in Dorne. This new marriage indicates that any children Rhaegar may have with his new wife, presumably Anna Stark, are his true-born children and not bastards. The enormous discoveries left both of them, with the ignorant of Robert's rebellion and Samuel being preoccupied with his own misery. Samuel complains about having to ascribe the bodily functions of High Septon Maynard. In exasperation with the situation, Samuel stalks out of the room and goes to the library. He grabs several books and other items. After a contemplative look at the atrium of the room, he meets Gilly in the courtyard of the Citadel, where he and Sam wait for him in a wagon. When Gilly asks if he is sure whether he wants to give up his studies, Sam replies that he is tired of reading about the achievements of better men, quoting his father. They ride off into the night. On Dragonstone, the King of the North, Jon Snow, is walking the grounds of Dragonstone Island when the Dragon Queen Daenerys Targaryen arrives on the back of her dragon Drogon. Drogon roars at Jon at first and stretches out his hand to face the King of the North. Drogon comes in and recognizes Jon as a friend of his master, and possibly sensing his Targaryen ancestry, allowing him to stroke his snout, much to Dany's surprise. When Jon Snow, under slight duress, agrees that the dragons are beautiful beasts, Dany responds that the dragons are her children. When Jon Snow observes that she was not gone for long, Dany was clearly surprised that no, she wasn't, and she now has fewer enemies to deal with. Daenerys then asks Jon about the Battle of Bastards and him taking a knife in the heart for his people. Jon deflects this and replies that Devil Seaworth likes to embellish things. The conversation is interrupted by the return of a recently healed Jorah Mormont. Tyrion introduces Jorah to Jon, who says he worked under Jorah's father in the Night's Watch. When Jorah reaffirms his allegiance to her, she accepts his offer of service and hugs him. Later, Tyrion and Varys talk about the deaths of Randall and Dickon in the Reach. Varys tells Tyrion about how he distanced himself from the Mad King's role in killing Rickard Stark and his son Brandon Stark. Tyrion continues to insist that Daenerys is not her father, and Varys agrees up to a point. Dany may not have her father's madness, but she also has a growing ruthless streak, which in Varys' view must be curtailed by Tyrion's more pragmatic counsel. They discuss the sealed scroll containing Bran Stark's messages from the north, which Varys of course read. Later, at the chamber of the painted table, Jon tells Daenerys by the news of his half-brother Bran and half-sister Arya Stark's return to Winterfell. He wants to come to Winterfell, concerned by Bran's vision, which warns the army of the dead are getting closer, and Jon is worried the Undead army will make it past the wall and advance to the north. Dany knows that Jon doesn't have enough men to fight the army of the dead, and Jon asks her again to join him. However, Dany's worried that Cersei will take advantage and march in if she turns her focus to the army of the dead. Tyrion's president proposes that bringing a White to the south of King's Landing would prove that the army of the dead is real and convince Queen Cersei Lannister so they can come to a truce. Varys opines that it's suicide to try to appeal to Cersei, but Tyrion argues that he can persuade his brother Jaime. Davos, as the only one who might be able to smuggle Tyrion into King's Landing, reluctantly agrees. He also thinks such a mission is risky even for a smuggler like him. Jorah volunteers to go north to help capture White, while Jon volunteers to lead the expedition, since the Free Folk won't follow Jorah and he is the only one who has the most experience facing their enemy. Apparently on the verge of tears about the idea of Jon leaving, Daenerys responds that he did not give Jon permission to leave, but Jon reminds her that he is the king of the north. He tells her she has the power of life and death over him, but that he trusted her even though she was a stranger. He pleads with her to return the favor by trusting him. Later, Davos and Tyrion chat about smuggling before embarking on their mission to infiltrate King's Landing. Davos specifying Gendry about Tyrion wants to secretly meet with Jaime to find a peaceful solution to the war. Davos and Tyrion return with Gendry to Dragonstone. At the Dragonglass mines, they meet Jon Snow, who is supervising the diggings and excavations. Gendry remarks that Jon is a lot shorter than he expected, and Meal burns out his true parentage, on the assumption that Jon will value honesty and will appreciate the idea of Ned Stark and Robert Baratheon's bastards joining forces. Gendry volunteers to accompany Jon on his mission to the north to capture White and convince Queen Daenerys and Queen Cersei that the true war lies to the north. As Jon Snow and his party, including Jorah Mormont, prepared to depart on boats for Eastwatch by the sea, Dany and entourage arrive to bid them farewell. Dany quips to Jorah that they should be used to saying farewell to each other. Jon arrives at the beach as they are saying goodbye. Jon playfully quips to Daenerys that if their mission is unsuccessful and doesn't return, she at least won't have to deal with the King of the North anymore. Daenerys responds that she's grown used to him, hinting that she may have feelings for him. Jon wishes her good fortune in the wars to come before he leaves. Dany and Tyrion watches Jon Snow and his party depart on their boats for Eastwatch. In King's Landing, Jaime returns to King's Landing to inform Cersei of the defeat. He finally insists that the Lannisters have no choice of defeating Daenerys, even if Cersei were able to buy enough mercenaries to replace her huge losses. Qyburn Scorpion did little more than anger Drogon, and neither the Lannister soldiers nor any mercenaries were able to match a huge horde of Dothraki, who Jaime knows killed their men as if it were sport to them, not war. Cersei silently asks Jaime if they are expected to surrender to a queen whose throne Cersei occupies, and whose father Jaime betrayed and murdered, remarking that Tyrion could intercede for them with Daenerys as an apology for killing Joffrey and Tywin. Jaime asks Cersei that Tyrion's innocent of Joffrey's murder, telling her Lena Tyrell confessed to it. Cersei is dismissive of Tyrion's innocence in all things as usual, so Jaime has to talk her through it, asking rhetorically if Lena would prefer Marjorie to marry the strong-willed and sadistic Joffrey or the emotionally pliable and good-natured Tommen. Effectively, Olenna would have become the true ruler of the Seven Kingdoms behind the scenes, in the same way that her father, Tywin Lannister, became the true ruler of Westeros through his grandsons. Feeling cheated with yet another vengeance, Cersei can barely contain her fear as she laments listening to Jaime, saying Olenna ought to have died screaming. Jaime says she's dead nonetheless, along with the rest of House Tyrell, and that they will go the same way unless they are careful. Jaime sees no other path to victory. Tyrion now stands against his own siblings with a foreign invader possessed of a large, fearsome army and 3 ferocious dragons. Cersei dismisses protests, however, making it plain she intends to fight to the death rather than surrender her throne, and expects to save from Jaime and the rest of the Lannister military. Later, beneath the Red Keep, Bronn purports to lead Jaime to a sparring session amongst the skulls of the Targaryen dragons. However, discovered is really a secret meeting with his strange brother Tyrion. Jaime says she's angry that Bronn has arranged a secret meeting. Tyrion compliments Jaime on shrewdly and sentimentally abandoning the Lannister seat of Casterly Rock, when Jaime wishes him dead for killing their father Tywin. Snapping, an emotional Tyrion points out that their father knew he was innocent, but still condemned him to death nonetheless, having hated him all his life for being born a dwarf. When Jaime demands to know what Tyrion wants, the dwarf responds that Jaime knows that Daenerys will win the last war, and tells him that Daenerys is willing to make peace with Cersei under certain conditions. He tells Jaime about Daenerys' terms. Meanwhile, Davos visits Fleabot and eventually finds Gendry in a smithy on the Street of Steel. Jokingly thought Gendry might still be rowing by then, Gendry confirms that no one has given him a second glance and realizes that Davos has come to bring him for something important. I've never been happy with serving the family and murdered his father tried to kill him. Gendry explains he's preparing for such a moment and readily agrees to come with him. When Davos warns it will be dangerous that he should take one of the swords to the shop, Gendry points out that he was never taught to fight properly and is only good with the hammer, retrieving from the back of the shop a warhammer, a model with the stag's head design on either side of the haft socket, lately forged himself and referencing his Baratheon roots. Later, on the shores of Blackwater Bay, Davos and Gendry, having placed his hammer in Davos' boat, prepare to leave but are spotted by a pair of gold cloaks. Davos pretends to become a smuggler and bribes the guards with coin. He strikes up conversation with the guards, and on being asked about his cargo, he shows him he's transporting fermented crab, an aphrodisiac that is popular with city's brothels. He covers the crab while pulling the cloth aside, tied the warhammer, and gives each guard a sample. The guards are satisfied, if slightly disgusted, with Davos' explanation and bribe and prepared to depart. Materialize at that exact moment, feels like his 2 liters are back and all looks suspicious. Tyrion walks them past the boat while looking downward. However, one of the guards recognizes Tyrion by his scar and asks him to stop. They realize that he's indeed Tyrion Lannister, and only see through Davos' deception. With their backs to Gendry and the boat before they can react, he goes above by smashing and skulls him with his hammer. Davos, slightly exasperated, introduces Gendry to Tyrion, who rightly observes, "He'll do." Later, at the Red Keep, Qyburn is visiting Cersei when Jaime enters her chambers. Jaime tells Cersei they met with Tyrion. When Cersei asks if Daenerys wants to negotiate a surrender, Jaime decides Dany is seeking armistice due to the threat posed by the army of the dead. Cersei knows that Bronn secretly organized a meeting between Tyrion and Jaime. Cersei says that perhaps the alliance with Daenerys may be a wiser move, but she retains her determination to destroy any force that stands against her. She also says Jaime plans to punish Bronn for arranging the clandestine meeting with Tyrion. Cersei then reveals she is pregnant with another of Jaime's children, and after reflecting on her late father's advice that the lion does not concern himself with the opinions of the sheep, Cersei hugs Jaime and whispers in his ear that he is never to betray her again. And finally, at Eastwatch by the sea, after landing at Eastwatch, Jon Snow and his band meet with the wailing Tormund, who thinks that Jon's plan is suicidal, and when he asks which of the 2 ferocious queens is it they need to convince, Jon replies both. Davos volunteers to stay behind at Eastwatch because he regards himself as a liability, given his age and relative lack of fighting ability. Later, the Night's Watch has detained members of the Brotherhood of Banners, including Beric Dondarrion, Thoros, and Sandor Clegane. Jon and his team meet with the prisoners in the icy cells beneath Eastwatch, where the entire group swiftly establishes their reasons for hating each other. Gendry opines that they should not trust Thoros because the Brotherhood sold him to the Red Witch, raising Davos and Jon's hackles. Thoros, in turn, is surprised to see Jorah, an old comrade and rival from the siege at Pike. While the wildlings Mormont and the Brotherhood of Banners distrust each other, they decide to put aside their differences to fight against the army of the dead. Sandor quips that the cells are freezing. After they are freed, Jon, Jorah, Tormund, Gendry, Sandor, Beric, and Thoros exit Eastwatch's gate and set out into the lands beyond the wall on their dangerous mission to capture White to bring to Daenerys and Cersei. So anyway, let's take a look at some behind-the-scenes notes from this episode. The episode title is a reference to the castle and port of Eastwatch by the sea, one of only 3 manned castles left on the wall. As the only castle on the wall located on the sea and the closest home, it was likely the place of the White Walkers would attack. The opening credits have been updated from the last episode, replacing Pike with new animation for Eastwatch by the sea. Following the hype from the battle in the preceding episode, the live viewership ratings for Eastwatch also surpassed it to once again breaking all-time viewership ratings for the TV series. In terms of Nielsen ratings, which don't include streaming services or DVR, 10.72 million people watched this episode live, surpassing the 10.2 million for the preceding episode, Spoils of War, and up from the 10.1 million rating for the Season 7 premiere Dragonstone. Similarly, this episode also broke the day after site visit numbers for Game of Thrones wiki set by those episodes with 5.1 million, up from 4.6 million for the Spoils of War, which actually makes it the second highest traffic day on the wiki of all time, officially surpassing the 4.8 million day after site visits for season 6's The Door, the episode that Hodor died. The highest visit to the site to date above the episode was the season 6 finale, which jumped to 9.1 million site hits, possibly due to the real Jon Snow's real parentage. So far, I think this episode is kind of interesting, and as someone who has seen the entire series, I think we might know what Cersei's reaction might be, as well as Daenerys's, so So, there's that. So overall, I give Eastwatch 3 Iron Thrones out of 5. Well, anyway, tune in as we take a look at the penultimate episode of the season, Beyond the Wall. So, until then, remember everyone, winter is coming.